Howdy folks, I hope you're well. Sorry for the minute or so, just a couple of minutes delays there. I was making sure everybody can watch. We've got people watching. We've already got 50 people watching. Thank you for that. Hope everybody's doing good. Getting ready for this cold weather that apparently is supposed to be coming in the next few days. So tonight we've got various things to talk about. I got a few bits to talk about, which we will do a little while after. I've got a repeat going on myself for some reason. I'm not sure where that repeat's coming from, but we will figure it out. Hello to Lorraine. I hope you're well. So yeah, we've got people watching. I hope you can all hear all right. So I've got some stuff that I want to go through and talk about later on. But the first thing we're going to do is we are going to bring our guest on for this week. And our guest this week is Gary. Gary Tomlinson's coming on. So let's bring Gary on. Just give me a second. Gary, how are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. So I can, everybody can hear you, see you. All good. There we go. So you're coming on. How you doing, Bill Buxton? I hope you're well. You're coming on tonight. We've got 75 people watching already, which is great. And that number will increase. So you're coming on tonight to talk about a few things. The main thing you want to give tips-wise and answer any questions on is what?
Well, basically, where you need to be at this time of year, really, to race competitive with the racing season commencing in March. Bearing in mind, these are just my opinion, but it's been tried and tested in the past.
Yeah, so it's basically getting everything ready for the breeding, pairing, the health of the birds, what have you.
Yeah, I mean, most people will be paired up now. Some people will have young ones flying out, believe it or not, because the rings come out really early now. Most will have rung pigeons in December, very early December, and like I say, you know, them pigeons will have a bit of age on them now, so they've been in and out of the loft, flicking about, etc. For me, personally speaking, I think it's way too early at that time of year. Although the weather were mild before Christmas, the youngsters, for me, or our best performing youngsters, was late January, stroke February, actually, especially the ones going on the dog. But prior to that, you need to make sure that your stock pigeons are in tip-top condition. The hens don't need to be carrying any weight. The cocks need to be bouncing, so they need to be on a good widowwood mix. Plenty of vitamin C, and a good product to also put in the water is Botanicals BioCal 12, I think it is. It's superb, great eggshells. You know, no soft eggshells. It's really good stuff. Plenty of wheat germ oil on the corn, at least 3 days a week. You know, to help the hens a little bit. You know, because it's just a testing time, and stress is a big thing as well. But regarding selecting your pigeons, providing you've done the medication side prior to pairing up, so you know you've treated with Parastop or whatever, or beta or whatever prior to pairing, so the pigeons are 100% clean. Then you select. To me, it's always been winner to winner. Or if a stock pair's produced 1 year, then keep them together the following year. No need to go swapping things around. Although by changing things, you can drop on a fluke pair if you like. We've done it ourselves many times. You know, but if you've got a good pair of racers, which have both won, either as young birds, yearlings, 2-year-olds, whatever, couple them together, and for me, you'd be halfway there. moving on to coupling them. Obviously, everybody knows how to pair pigeons. You know me telling that. Everybody knows what to do. Let a pair out every time, so there's no squabbling, no smashing eggs, etc. But we'll move on to when they've laid. This is a bit of a crucial time, really, because most of the old pigeons will be carrying a bit of canker. All pigeons have got canker, but they'll be carrying a bit of canker. So when they've been sitting 8 to 10 days, you know, give them at least a 5-day course for canker. The product we use is Ranitazole. My stock pigeons have had it. Then Herbicol straight after, or Sedacol, you know, or Livacol, one of them 3 products for 2 days, and then a multivitamin. Let them have as much corn as they want while they're sitting. We've also now introduced Teerling's Tovo, which is very similar to Omaform. This, we're putting a feeding trough on floor, and the pigeons just help themselves, and it's amazing, you know. It's also amazing how many people are actually using it, because I had a good few bags at the shop and they've gone in no time. So there's obviously a lot more than me what's clicked on to how good it is, you know. It's a good product, and it's good value for money for what it costs compared to Omaform. So, you know, your pigeons should be sitting nice and tight. Keep plenty. Don't make the mistake I made this year. But after all these years of having pigeons, my number 1 pigeon, Golden Balls Junior, crushed an egg. Why? Because I didn't put enough straw in his bowl. I let him carry it as I thought he carried enough, but obviously he hadn't. He's got plenty of straw in now, and both his eggs second round are full. You know, so not smash these. Yeah, plenty of bedding down, you know, no stress, no strain. Keep it simple. The youngsters start to hatch off. Again, same corn, top breed, the best corn that you can afford to buy. The best breeding mix you can afford to buy. If possible, mix 2 together. Once the youngsters are about 8 to 9 days old, start changing it and adding a bit of breed and wean. And again, what I would do then, when the youngsters are 10 days old in the nest, I would canker them again, but only for 3 days. Just to make sure, because canker, believe it or not, is a killer. And if your youngsters, once you move them, they're carrying that, you're trying to give your youngsters the best possible chance you can, the best possible start you can. Get off on a bad start, and it's a recipe for disaster. So we'll move on then to weaning youngsters. We don't wean our youngsters until, I've jumped the gun a bit really. At 22 days old, all our youngsters are vaccinated with Columbavac PMV. I will then do them again 14 days later with Columbi 2, which is for PMV and herpes. Now, I first bought this out in 2015 regarding what a killer it was. I won't name people, but so many people have followed my advice regarding this, and some really top class fanciers, believe you me, and said it's the best advice ever given out. But some people are, again, penny pinching and going straight with the Columbia 2. No, that's not the way. The way, first of all, is vaccinate with PMV, because PMV, if it gets old in your loft, it's a nightmare. So PMV is the main one. We vaccinate for PMV at 22, 23 days old. 14 days later, PMV and herpes. You will not have a problem with fat eye. You will not have a problem with youngsters, or the odd one might go back. But speaking on a percentage basis, 99.9% will be 100%. Again, quality breed and wean. Also, maple peas have been added by now for the youngsters, because we are now starting to wean them off. I don't leave the top off the water, because we move our youngsters when they're around 25, 26 days old, or we find them on floor out at nest bowl. But I think if a pigeon's got a brain, it'll find the water, especially with cider vinegar in it or something like that, because you should be able to smell it. So it should be able to smell where the water is. I often see it too many times where people have put some deep litter down, they leave the top off the water, Next thing you've got pigeons bathing in it, shitting in it, you know, and straight away then other pigeons will go and drink it. So I'm sorry, you know, I don't believe that they'll create their own immunity by doing this. No, that's not what I think anyway. And bearing in mind we have next year we'll probably have 1,500 birds in the one-loft, but we had last year 720 pigeons, and each one of them pigeons what come never had the top off the water. And fortunately now we've learned as we've gone along different things as you do, and we think we've cracked it with the health side and the weaning of the youngsters and how they come to us, etc., etc. But basically, don't let up on the canker treatment. Canker is priority when pairing, and when pigeons are sitting youngsters, and when pigeons are feeding youngsters. It's a must.
Okay, mate.
So whatever you do, don't give up.
We've got some questions coming in, but just to say, ask questions in the chat. Put your questions in for Gary in the chat, and I will read them out in a little while. We'll put all the questions together. So keep the questions coming, and we'll ask them to Gaz in a little while. Sorry to interrupt, Gaz. Carry on, mate.
No, that's basically, you're there in a nutshell now. You know, we're up to the youngsters being weaned. We've got the feeding while again, buy the best corn you possibly can. Give them the best start you possibly can, because it's same as anything. A baby, for example, treat your young pigeons like human beings. What you put into your babies as kids will come out as older when they grow up. Pigeons are no different. Dogs are no different. Whatever animal it is, they need the best as youngsters. So, you know, and once going on to the weaning again, once the birds have been weaned, at 28 days, I would canker them again, but only for 2 days. Now you can either do this by tablet form, which can be a long job if you've got a lot of youngsters, or again in the water treatment. But I would alternate the tricho by now. I would change things. You know, I wouldn't use the same canker treatment again. But trust me, canker is the main thing in youngsters. What causes the problems? That and herpes. You've already vaccinate for that. Remember, 23 days PMV, 14 days later, Columbia 2, PMV and herpes. You're 2/3 of the way there to having healthy youngsters, trust me.
So just run through just kind of like as a summary, run through the treatments again, you know, over the life of the young bird again. Because there's a couple of people just joined. So kind of give us a summary, if you would, again, mate, of like a diary of when you should do it.
Yeah. When the pigeons are sitting, you know, 8 to 10 days, give them a canker treatment for 5 days, solid. For this product, we use ranitidol. Then they have 2 days of herbicol, livercol, or cetacol, followed by another 2 days of probably Gary W or any good multivitamin. I'm just quoting, these are the products that I use. I'm not saying that's what you've got to use. You use what you want to use. And then once the youngsters about 8 days old, then you canker them again, but only, well, you put canker in the water for the parents to feed them, and but you only do this for 3 days. And then, as I said again, once the youngsters are weaned, once they've been weaned about 4 weeks, we canker them again, but just for 2 days. But I would look for a milder canker treatment. A great product out there now, or it's not out there now, but it's available, is the old-fashioned method from 10 years ago, nifuromycin, which totally disappeared off the market. You know, I mean, fortunately, I found a contact where it's available again. Now that is a terrific product, and it's not severe on the pigeon, if you like, and it treats canker, it treats cocks, it gives a multi-purpose of things. Now, once a month, whilst the pigeons are on the dark or whatever, it don't take to use that. What I will say is, once you start racing them, it's a must for when the pigeons come back, the youngsters come back from the first race on the Saturday and on the Sunday. Do this for 3 weeks, you'll have no young bird sickness. as I said with the vaccination, do it, you'll have no fat eye. You might get the odd case, but very rarely it does happen. So, you know, I mean, that's just my opinion.
Great. All right, mate. Thank you for that. Let's get some questions in. That's all right. 1 second. So we've got what Stephen Morley says. What preparation would you give to young birds going to a one-loft race?
Well, coming to our one-loft race, I would advise everybody to vaccinate the youngsters at 23 days old for PMV using either Columbavac or Nobilis. Reason I would advise to use Columbavac is because it's more of a liquid based, the other's an oil based. And when we vaccinate them again then for PMV and herpes, that's an oil based vaccine. And I don't like using 2 oil based vaccines on trial. Having said that, it's your choice. But I would advise 23 days old, PMV. Then when they come to us, we shall vaccinate them again straight away for PMV. And 14 days after that, they'll get done for PMV and herpes.
Anything else you would do generally for young birds other than the PMV? I assume you would just treat them as the same as you would as if they were going into your own race loft. There's nothing else you should do, really, is there?
No. I mean, let's not kid ourselves here, and I don't try and dress it up any different. And any one-loft race person what says they don't have problems with pigeons with health, then they're telling lies. I say it as it is. The health situation is a nightmare. For 28 days, or any bird coming into this loft, it's a nightmare. I don't care what you've given them, what you've done with your pigeons. We have to watch them like it all. Now, we think we've cracked it. We've got a little bit of something which I won't let out. I will not let that out because that's my little secret for keeping Who Dares Wins one-loft race pigeons, international one-loft race pigeons healthy. Okay, and they get that once a week. And anybody running any one-loft race who tells you they don't have a problem with health, liars. Basically, putting it bluntly. Because you're getting so many pigeons from so many different lofts. You've got all the cross-contamination and all these different bacteria. Some people probably never treat the pigeons at all because they think that they'll create their own immunity. Them days are gone. The modern day pigeon now is a 500-mile day pigeon, not 2-day pigeon. It's a 600-mile day pigeon. Long gone are the days where what we're missing at night, you went out next morning, they were sat upon loft like soldiers. They're not there anymore. The modern day pigeon ain't like that. Everything's been modified. Feeding's been modified. It's like athletes. Think of an athlete. They've all got dietitians. They've all got doctors looking after them, boxers, whatever sport you're into. Advanced that much. Racing pigeons is no different. It's advanced. Far from the days of peas, beans, and tares. You know, your carbohydrates are the thing now. So, regarding one-loft racing, I'll tell you exactly as it is. The health is a nightmare. But we think that we've cracked it. But it's took 4 years of changing things, and I've been into pigeons 45 years, changing pigeons each year, changing things each year. So I think finally last year was the best year, and I think we've finally sort of, you know, we know where we are.
Cool. And Stephen Morley says, thanks, Gary. Derek Colligan says, why would you canker when on young birds?
Is that why they're in the egg, or is that why they're feeding the young birds in the nest? I take it's why they're feeding the young birds in the nest.
Yeah.
Because you can have a reaction. You've given them the canker treatment while they're sitting eggs. This is just a backup to ensure that there's no canker in the gut, which it's not reached or whatever. When the parents are feeding the youngsters, so they're getting the best of the parents. So if you've got a bit of treatment in the water and they're feeding them that, you're going to clean everything out. And you've got I can't stress enough how important it is to do this because canker is one of the biggest killers, other than herpes, in young birds.
Fair enough. We've got a few people saying hi. If there's any more questions you've got, fire them in to Gary. We actually do have one question that came in at late last week's show, which is not directly related to what Gary's talking about now. But being as Gary's on, I'm going to bring the question up while he's on. Simon Schofield says, "Which Fed did you fly in, Gary?"
Many Feds. We started off years and years ago on a racing with my dad, and it was the Central Derbyshire Federation, which was a massive federation then. Probably 5,000 birds a week, as many Feds had that day and age. We've been in the Derbyshire Fed, but the main Fed was the Burton and South Derbyshire Fed. The Derby, Burton and District South Road Federation, of which the club we was in then was flying 25 mile further than the nearest club in that federation up until the last 10 years of being in that federation. So if you top that federation, your bird had got to fly 25 miles further than the nearest club in the federation on its own. So you know mean feat.
Cool. I hope that answers. Just give me a second. We'll get some more questions up. We'll get some more people saying hello. Just 1 second. I got one thing I got to get done here. Like somebody said to me at Blackpool weekend, I need a producer. Can't do it all myself, but it's all good for now. It's going so far so well. No internet problems, which is the main thing. All right, let's just say hello to a few people, and then we'll bring up another question. Thank you to everybody that's watching and anybody that shared the show. We've got just under 100 people watching now, which is great. Thank you very much. If you'd like to share it, please do so. A real quick point about sharing. When I ask people to share, I do it genuinely so that other people know we're on. People that may not know we're on every week, 8 o'clock on a Monday. I had a bit of a backlash last week from, obviously we had like 170 people watching last week, and some people shared it into the same groups. I don't ask to share to do it for that. I don't ask to pee anybody off, and I've got no control over what groups people send it into. I know for a fact we get live videos into the RPI Facebook group, and if we get multiple of the same videos, we just leave the first one that was shared and we just delete the others. It's as simple as that. It caused a lot of problems last week. So when I ask people to share, I'm not just talking about groups, because if you share it on your timeline, that'll come up to people to show you watching it. You can host a watch party. You can do all of that stuff. So to me, sharing is a thing of getting more people involved in the show, letting more people know about what we're doing. It's not done for anything else than that, just as a general point. Moving forward, Gary Ford says, hi, Gary and Mark. Jimmy Bulger, hello to you. Gary Stewart, evening to you as well. So, yeah, let's move on to this. So this question came in, and it was a question, it came in like literally 2 minutes before we were due to finish, but I'm gonna it's not that one, that's for later. I'm gonna bring I'm leaving Gary on. He asked me the question, and the question was from Gary Smith last week, and he said, what's your view on one-loft racing? I know you're a big fan. How do you think it will have a big impact on the decline of club racing? Now, I'm not obviously Gary's got a vested interest. He runs a one-loft race, and I thought it would just be good to get Gary's opinion on this after I give my thoughts, because Gary and I have been known to disagree on a couple of ideas that I've had, which is good. That's good and healthy and what have you. So the question was, what's your view on one-loft racing? I know you're a big fan. However, do you think it will have a big impact on the decline of club racing? My take on it, for what it's worth, and I'm only saying it because Gary asked me last week and I promised we would deal with it to deal with it. Oh, by the way, we've got Jeffrey Abel said, would like to say a big thank you to you and Gary for the DVD. I would recommend it to everybody. My pleasure, Jeffrey. That's great of you to say. Before I go into this question, we've actually had a few people join and firing questions in, which is more, let's get these dealt with now before we move on to that. Andrew Walton says, just tell Gary thank you. Tell him I will speak later in the week, top man. Jim Benyon says, hi, Mark and Gary. This is a question for Gary, really. I've got a hen, 2014. She stopped laying. Any advice, mate?
So she's 5 years old.
6.
Yeah. 6 this year. Yeah, she should be laying with no problem. But first of all, is she overweight? Secondly, feel around the vent at the back end, etc. Is there any swelling? Box her for a couple of weeks and put them on plenty of vitamin C and some B12, but keep her light on the corn so she keeps the weight off, and then couple her back and see what happens then. You know, if she doesn't lay then, if she's always laid before pretty frequent, then there's an issue somewhere.
You've said quite a bit about weight and how the weight's got to be bang on and they can't be overweight. So that was the first thing you said as a potential issue there. That is probably the biggest issue, is it, when it comes to hens especially?
Yeah, the hens have got to be really fine, you know, very, very, very slim down. You know, they don't want no more than 1/4 ounce a depurative each 2 weeks before coupling, and they should be carrying no weight whatsoever. And I mean, I know you can go on and on, but I'll invite anybody to come to this loft, come and have a look at what we've got here now, and you'll see that all our youngsters, they're all chipping out together. They all lay pretty much within 9 and 13 days. So that's all I can say, you know. And what I'm saying is no, we do no more than what I'm telling you on here, and that's it. And it's the same every year.
Great. Dave Ward says, hi, Gary and Mark. It was nice to meet you in Blackpool. You too, Dave. So coming back to that question then, let's bring the question up again just to refresh ourselves. Not that one. Keep getting the wrong one up, guys. So Gary says, what's your view on one-off racing? I know you're a big fan. However, do you think it will have a big impact on the decline of club racing? Here's my take on it, Gary, for what it's worth. I don't think you're going to see people going away from club racing to go to one-off racing. I just think generally, like as a bigger picture, the decline of club racing, the numbers speak for themselves, is happening without one-off racing. That's my take on it. My take is that you're not going to see en masse people jump from club racing to go into one-off racing. You'll see some that for whatever reason can't continue to race. They haven't got the time. They haven't got the potential. You know, there's a lot of elements. We decided before that, you know, space, councils now with back gardens, they're not letting people keep them on allotments as much. But time is one of the biggest things. Yes, you'll get perhaps a couple of, you know, some people in the bigger picture of things moving, but I don't think it's going to directly contribute to the decline of club racing. I think that's happening nothing to do with one-off racing. I've said from the get-go, since I started RPI, I'm a big fan of one-off races because I think they've got many, many benefits to them. And as I said before, the world is a different place, like it or not, from 30, 40 years ago. The world is a completely different place. Like, Gary, you before I get your opinion on it, you know, back when you and your dad were keeping pigeons and in the mining days, hundreds of people in a local area probably kept racing pigeons in your local area.
Absolutely.
You know, you've told me...
Communities, you know, everybody in the community got pigeons or grounds or whippets.
Yeah. And that's not the case now. You know? It's just not the case. So what's your take on it, Gaz? I mean, obviously, you know, you've got it's a different side because you run a one-loft race, but at the same time, you've been a club racer for years up until 5-6 years ago, all your life really up until then.
So you really want me to give you this honestly, don't you?
Always.
Right. Let's get started then. One-loft racing can destroy a federation. Many will say, why? Well, all you Pigeon fanciers out there, you need to listen very, very careful. Because all birds which come to our one-loft get transferred into mine and Annette's flying name, which is G and A Tomlinson, with a loft number of DY1453. Now, my club noticed that this year, and they put in a proposition that all one-loft racers must have their own unique loft number. By which time then that all the birds coming into that one loft would be transferred into that one loft. So then birds would be owned by Who Dares Wins.
So hang on a minute. So at the moment, what you're saying is, obviously, all the pigeons that come into your one-loft race are registered to you. So you're responsible for them. In theory, on paper, you're the owner of them, yeah?
Absolutely.
In your name.
Yeah.
Right. So just tell me that last bit again. So your club,
so our club put a proposition in. Well, it went to we had a proposition at our AGM, which got voted in unanimous, and then it went to the region to be discussed. The proposition was that all must have their own unique individual loft number. Right. The reasons behind it is, let's say we have 1,500 birds in our race this year. Let's say we only have 1,000, hypothetically, yeah? There's nothing stopping me within the RPI rules sending all them one-loft birds with my local federation. Why? Because I'm a member of my club, I'm a member of that federation, and nobody can stop me sending them birds, that 1,000 birds, with that federation.
Right.
So you imagine that drag of pigeons all coming to my loft, which would be more than half the fed. They wouldn't even be able to fit them on the lorry to start off with. So then we could dig his heels in and say, right, well, nobody races then. Bearing in mind, I've never, ever sent a pigeon with a federation, and I never will. One-loft racing for me is one-loft racing. You convoy your own birds, you stand on your own 2 feet. You don't look for cover going with federations. I hear all this crap over and again that, going with a federation will get dragged all over. I will dragged all over when all them birds are coming to the same area, but 1,000, 800, 700, 500, whatever, they're going to that one loft. They're not going to get dragged all over at all. They're going to drag the pigeons to that loft. But the RPR had the chance. So what happened at the region? We never got informed, and me being out at game for a while now, nor on the racing, etc., took my finger off the pulse a bit slightly. Plus, don't forget, I had my dad pass away in December, so I wasn't thinking straight. We needed somebody from our club at that regional meeting. Because we didn't have anybody at that regional meeting, the proposition got kicked out. I know of another federation which put the same proposition into their region, which was the West Midlands region, and it got voted out again on a technicality. Now, the RPRA, I feel we've been let down by the RPRA. The RPRA implemented one-loft race rules. The biggest rule that they missed, or the biggest mistake they made, was not insisting that all one-loft racers must have their own unique loft number. Because now, if we want to be awkward, or any one-loft out there decides you want to send its federation, they can't stop it. You can pass whatever rule you want at an AGM within the federation, but it's not an RPRA rule, so it's out. You can't stop us sending with the local federation. Not that I ever would, but I know there's some lofts out there what will.
So are you saying that if each one loft had its own loft number, that within the rules it would then be written into that one lofts can't send with federations?
Absolutely, because, for example, my own loft then, yeah, Who Dares Wins. Who Dares Wins is not a member of any federation. Okay? Gary Tomlinson are a member of a federation. So if all them birds were transferred into that one loft race loft number, you can't send me any specialist club or any federation, because that club, that loft is not a member of that federation or specialist club.
Right. Okay. So, because you see, playing devil's advocate, some people would say, yes, they can see the harm of federations, but actually one-off races could help financially federations. But the likelihood is, for how many one-off races within the UK we're talking about, it's only going to drag certain clubs or feds down, and it's the drag of the birds, and there's a whole other. Your main issue is that at the moment, any person can send any one-off race bunch of birds with their local club or fed,
providing the people running the one-off race are members of that federation.
Right.
So, for example, we're members of our club, which is Sherland Miners Welfare Flying Club. That club is affiliated to North Derbyshire South Road Federation. We're members of that federation. So nobody within that federation can stop us sending all these one-off birds to that federation. I would never do that, because I don't want safety in numbers. One-off race birds should be convoyed by go on their own. They should be up on their own. They shouldn't be looking to go with a federation. But what I'm saying is, the option is there at the moment because the RPI are allowing this to happen. Now, the council could meet, and I believe the council have the rights to implement a rule within the one-off race rules to implement that all one-off races must have their own one-off race unique loft number. Will they? No. Because they're all looking after themselves. They're all in their own little clique, all little cushy, but they don't want to upset nobody. And I'm sorry, but I say it as it is. We put the proposition in. I feel we were let down. I know another federation put the proposition in, and I know they were let down. Why? Because they're frightened of ruffling too many feathers. If you want to run a one-off race, by all means run a one-off race. Take your own pigeons, convoy your own pigeons. Don't try to destroy federations. I'll never do that. What I'm saying on here is, I could demand that all them birds go with my local federation.
Okay.
If they don't go, nobody else will go.
Right. Got you. So what's the state of play with it? It's just been blown out of the water, basically.
Blown out of the water and said, well, you'll have to re-put it in again another time, basically.
Okay. So
this year's what this year is. What I'm trying to, unless the council, they have got a council meeting where they all go and have the cups of tea and what have you in the posh hotel in February, discuss all kinds of things, but probably things which aren't as important as this, because this is very important. Because I know now that out there's going to be people very upset this year, and that's not from this one-off race, who dares wins, but from other one-off races who are going to be sending them birds with their local organisations.
Okay. In the bigger picture of the question that Gary asked, you've been in it long enough. Like I said, I don't think so. Outside of that specific issue, right? You know, I've been accused of only promoting one-off racing. One-off racing's not real pigeon racing. You're promoting the decline of club racing. That is not it at all. But I'm a realist when it comes to the numbers. I'm a numbers guy as well, and the numbers don't lie. My take on it is club racing is in decline because life is very different to 30, 40, 50 years ago. And there's a generational thing there, you know. People are getting older. The club members are getting older, you know. Case in point, when your dad was racing, you know, how big were the clubs then? When you were racing, they were probably a bit smaller than when your dad was racing. And now they're a hell of a lot smaller than any of them times, you know. I think it's an age stroke generation thing, and it's a completely different thing. The world is very different to all those years ago. What's your take on club racing?
Well, it's on the demise for definite, you know, and a lot of it is down to finances, and there's no handicap in the sport, so there's not a lot of encouragement for youngsters to come in, because obviously people who've been in the game years and years and years have to fly against they have to fly against them sort of people, you know. But I do think that the point I've brought up of a massive drag of pigeons going to a one-loft will destroy a federation, because people are not going to spend money sending birds each week if these one-loft races are going to send with the federation. No way. Who's going to throw good money after bad? Waste of time. So what they're going to turn around and say, I've had enough. And really, you're paying the union, etc. Where's the protection there from the RPRA? They are the people who could stop this happening.
Well, as you know, we have Ian Evans on next week, so we'll see what happens. See what he says. I like Ian a lot. We'll see what happens next week.
I think he's the best general manager we've had, and his hands are tied. And it's not such as this is not down to Ian, is it? There's a council. He's answerable to a council. Okay, this council meet. This council make the decisions. He's only the forefront of the RPRA, but he has to take all the flack for this group of people who have these meetings. And he'll get flack over this because he's the man in the chair. But he's the best man for the job.
No, he is. Absolutely. He's, yeah, great. Like I say, I'm looking forward to having him on next week. We'll see. Right. Guys, thank you very much for that. If you've got any more questions for him, let us know. He'll be coming on at some point again. Quick plug. His DVD is out, and I'm very close to getting that properly available online. In the meantime, if you want to buy it, message Gary, and you can PayPal Gary and get a copy of the DVD. The feedback, genuinely the feedback that I've had and Gary's had, I'm going to be putting the testimonials online. Feedback has been absolutely amazing. And thank you to everybody that has given us the feedback, but you've had more than I've had. But it's been spot on, hasn't it?
It's been absolutely fantastic, which I'm pleased about, because it shows that you're not getting a load of bullshit out there. What I gave out there was exactly the truth. Yeah. And I'm not saying it's going to turn people into wildebeest, because at the end of the day, you still need the tools to work with. All we've done there is we've tried to put people on the right lines. As I said earlier, there's sports on the demise because there's no handicap, unfortunately, in pigeon racing. So a young lad starting out there has got to compete against people what's been in it all their life. And not many people let their certain secrets out. Within that DVD, we've let a lot go, you know, and I've held nothing back. And I hope that people benefit from it, and I hope it does the people good. I'm quite sure if you do follow it, you'll see a big difference.
Well, the feedback's been great already. Right, thank you, mate. We will speak soon. Thanks for joining us, and catch you soon, mate.
All the best, guys.
Cheers, mate. Right, guys, so there was Gary with some tips on the breeding and getting them young birds as good as they can be beforehand. Right, we'll carry on with some more things. I'll quickly come back to that point because I got a few more things to mention about that. My take on it. Jonathan Parrott says, in relation to what Gary was talking about, they stopped me, as you know. Jonathan goes on to say, you can't send in a Fed, as you know. You had birds in my small one-loft race, 120 going in the club. They stopped the race because I took the top 16 in the Fed. in the first young bird race. I don't know. I now don't do a one-loft race, so 60 members don't enjoy the race. I did, but I still send 120 birds in the club as all on my own. So no difference between the club, just 60 flyers not having the fun they used to have is what's killing the sport. Good point, Jonathan, and tells you a lot. Tells you a lot. Andy Benny Butler says, "Hi Mark, Gary, not been flying long. How many one-loft races are there?" There are hundreds of one-loft races, Andy, around the world. There are, at this moment in time in the UK, there is 1, 2, 4 in the UK. One's a brand new one this year. And there is one in Ireland, and I believe there's one in the north of Ireland. So, but then around the world in Europe, there are lots and lots, Andy. Yeah, so what else have we got? Michael Willis says, "I agree about clubs getting smaller as there is only one club left in Derby now." Says a lot, doesn't it? So like I've said, I'm a massive fan of one-loft races. I think it can help to change and turn around the sport. I don't think that it's the demise of club racing. I think the demise of club racing is ultimately as a result of many other factors, nothing really to do with one-loft racing. Like I said, time, money, people's lifestyle. It's very different to 30, 40 years ago. And ultimately, I don't see there's a correlation. I personally see one-loft races are only good for the sport. Piru Inuit says, "Shall we give to young guys which want to start the sport pigeons for prices like £10? I would encourage the younger generation." Yeah, absolutely. There's a bunch of things that can be done, a bunch of plans and projects that can be done to bring new people in. As I've said before on the show, actually, I think that the target market audience should be 30s, 40s, and 50-year-olds. They're the ones with perhaps more settled lives, a little bit more money than. I'm not saying don't attract kids into it, right? I'm not saying that, but again, I'm talking about the sheer numbers. I think it's a better market to really go for from a numbers point of view. 40-somethings who have got, in some cases, more of a settled life, looking for something to do, that kind of take on it. That's my take on it anyway. But an extension, and this is just literally one slide of actually something I'm doing. I'm working on, which I've nowhere near finished. But based on Gary's question earlier about do you think one-loft races are affecting club racing, I thought I'd just share this slide. It's actually something I'm working on, and I've talked about my 3-phase plan before, and I just thought I'd share it with you. And it's pretty basic, all right? I'm not going to lie and say it's not. But I've said before that getting people into phase 3, people racing in their own back gardens, is numbers-wise is a really hard thing to do, because you've just not got, I don't think you've got enough people quick enough to turn this sport around, right? To get people, and that's why it's at the bottom of the funnel there, it's the least amount of people. You've not got enough people to turn the sport around by getting them to race from their own back gardens as normal, regular pigeon racing is known to be. I just don't see it. what I think is a great way and a plan is one-loft racing can get the mainstream involved. You can promote one-loft racing a lot easier. It's a lot easier to get more people interested in phase one. And I think you can use one-loft racing and really hit the mainstream media. Now, the mainstream equals millions of people, not just thousands of people, like, or even hundreds if you're looking at the UK. You're talking millions of people in that top there. Phase two, people breeding their own pigeons. What's ultimately going to happen is you're going to have a bunch of people that say, you know what? So phase one is you don't even have to hold a pigeon, house a pigeon, breed a pigeon. You can just have an interest. Either you don't own the pigeon, maybe you bet on the pigeon, or you do own the pigeon in the race. Phase two then is you're going to have, so at the top there, we've got potentially millions of people that are become interested in the sport. And then what you're going to have phase two is you have some people ultimately like racehorses, where people say, I want to own my own racehorse. I want to own part of a racehorse. You can do that. There's no reason why we can't do that. And then some of those people will say, well, I don't have to put a stable up in my back garden because I only have to have a loft. I'm going to breed my own birds to go into these races. That's phase two. And ultimately, some people will think, you know what, I want to start racing in my own back garden. Now, I'm not saying that's the only strategy we should look to implement, because ultimately getting young people in, telling people about regular racing, let's call it, is a valid thing to do. An initiative should be set up to do that as well. But I'm talking when you look at, in the UK, there was over 60,000 people in the late 80s, and there's 21,000 people now registered with the RPRA. You are not going to get the numbers we need, specifically in the UK, to turn this sport around, numbers only. It's not going to happen. And that's why I think one-loft racing is a great way of bringing people in. Jonathan Parrott said, bringing new people into the sport is no good if old fanciers don't welcome them or willing to change and improve the sport. The old lads won't change, so the sport is dying. And the old lads don't want competition. The sport is very set in its ways, sadly. That's another reason. Exactly. It's not welcoming to new people. I personally believe there should be a league system. I don't quite know how you do a handicap system, but you could easily implement a league system. So people coming in, start at League 2 or 1, and then they go up to the Premiership if they compete well. And that gets them people being able to win their league, just like football. But yeah, I think, Jonathan, there's an argument that there's an intrinsic few issues with the sport, and one of them is a lack of sportsmanship and a lack of wanting to help people. If I knew what, let's say, Gary knows about racing, I would love to think I'd helped a couple of people start winning at their local club or even Fed level. But I'm not normal, apparently. So my take on it, an extension is, like I said, I think one-off racing has the ability to bring a lot of interest in. So that's the equivalent of people going to the horse races because they've seen it or their friends go. Some of those people go on to own horses or syndicates of horses. And the great thing with the one plus we've got with the pigeon racing sport is that it's easy for you to start breeding your own pigeons and a lot easier for you to start racing them than it is to own a racehorse in your back garden. So we've got there's a lot of potential there. And I think that's it. This little thing is, it's just part of what I'm working on. I'm working on something to show more of my ideas, when we start, when I've got it all finished. So let's catch up with some more. Let's catch up with some more questions or comments. Chris Bennett says, "Evening, Mark. Are you going to the spring show in Houghton next month?" Yes, I plan to, Chris, but I haven't booked it yet because I'm still pending on this bloody house move. But I do plan to go to Houghton, yes. But I haven't yet arranged anything and booked. Mick Hessian says, Mickey says, does the kid who won the DVD want any old birds? I'll ask for you. Thank you very much for the offer, Mick and Mickey. Terry Wright says, when are you going to get some pigeons? You're in the right age bracket. Interesting story there, Terry. I haven't got any racing pigeons at the moment, but my little son Zandy, not so little anymore, at Blackpool came back with some roller pigeons because he'd done a deal with the guy. He takes after his dad. He'd waited until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He'd seen some rollers that the guy got. He went in and bid him dead low for them, and the guy took the deal. So at this moment in time, in an extended, large, big, I have to say, it's like a 5-foot dog cage in our dog room at the moment, we actually have 9 pigeons. And you know what? They're not mine, they're Zandy's. And I must say, they're beautiful pigeons. That's something I'm going to talk about in one of the shows. Not next week's show, probably the week after. rollers and tipplers and tumblers. I think there's a good starting point there. Because in many ways, it's good to get people interested in them and then graduate them to racers. I'm going to talk about that more. But I must say, some of these pigeons are beautiful. Like I say, there's Andy's pigeons. What I will say is it's really nice to hear some cooing again. It's great because they're essentially in my house, in this current house, in the dog room. I hear cooing all day, and it's a really nice thing. When am I going to get some? I got to get this house moved on. Then I got to convert the half the garage into a loft and stuff. It's going to happen. But you're right. I'm the right target age bracket, Terry. You're exactly right. And I think, that 40s, 50s bracket is a hell of a good target. Like I said, that doesn't mean not encourage young people in, but it's perhaps more of a realistic numbers target. Dennis Fern says, how can a young lad afford to enter a one-loft race? They can't, is the word, Dennis. I haven't said about young lads entering one-loft races as such specifically. I said about generally. But what I would say is, and that's part of what that presentation's for, is that there are syndicates that people can go in, and I'm working on a syndicate plan to where from even £20 you can be part of a syndicate. But what I would say, and I've said this before, one-off racing as it currently is does not just have to be the way it is. How it is great now, and the prize money is great. But if you combine the community idea with a one-loft race idea, and that's what this presentation I'm putting together is going to be talking about. Imagine a club one-loft race where everybody has 4 or 6 pigeons in that one loft. And then imagine those competing with other clubs on a community basis. That's one of the ideas I've got, which I'm going to be floating out. Many roads into a one loft indeed, Tom. McHessian, thank you for the offer very much. Look, Si, I'm not just targeting 30s, 40s, and 50s, but I think that has to be potentially, again, I'm a numbers guy, demographics wise, there has to be more people that you can target there because of everything we talked about, the ability to afford it and the ownership of a house. The reality is, look at the hoops somebody young's got to get into, right? The money is a major issue. 2, they got to persuade potentially their parents or parent to allow them to have it. I mean, I remember having to persuade my mum and dad to let me have my first loft. We were lucky because the garden was big enough, but not everybody's that case. Then it's the whole time thing and the school and the this and that. I'm not saying don't bring people in. I'm just saying let's be realistic about our expectations of that. So that's all I'm saying. If there's any more comments and questions, let me know. We're going to tie it up in the next few minutes here, this show. As I said, this thing I'm working on is just one little part of something I'm putting together just to get some more ideas out there how we can change and revolutionize this sport. And by the way, Terry, nice to see you, and congratulations on the size of your group. Terry Wright's group, his Racing Pigeon, the Racing Pigeon group, just hit 21,000 members, which is absolutely unbelievable. And well done to you, Terry, for running such a big group. I can only imagine how much effort that takes. Yeah, you're right, Dennis. It does all come down to money, ultimately. And this is what I was saying last week or the week before. Things need to be run more like a business at the RPRA. Clubs need to be run more like a business. Because imagine a club member as a customer. If club was run like a business, it wouldn't be seeing new customers go away, would it? Or wanting to go away. At the moment, it's very much you're not allowed in the club for whatever reason. It's not good practice. It's not. There's a lot of a mind shift change that needs to be brought in for this thing to turn around. Like everybody wants to see it turn around, or most people want to see it turn around. Okay, so a couple of quick things then. Next week we've got Ian Evans on, General Manager of the RPRA. He's going to be our guest on the show. I ran a poll. Started it about 4 days ago. This is the poll as of a few hours ago. We're about 300, or well over 300 votes now. And the poll was, should the way the RPRA is currently run change? At the moment, it's meant to run from the bottom up structure with club members going to their regions and regions voting, etc. Have a read of that poll. It's on the Racing Pigeon International Facebook page. At the moment, there's an overwhelming 90% vote. Yes, change is needed, with 10% voting no, it's fine. I've ran that poll. It's got 3 days left to run on it. It's the most voted for poll that I've ever done so far to date. I'm going to be using some of the comments from that poll and, of course, the results from that poll in next week's show. I know Ian Evans has got some specific things he wants to talk about. I encourage everybody to be on the show next week to ask Ian any questions that you've got or make any observations. One thing I will say is this. Proud and lucky. I feel myself lucky to have Ian want to come on the show. I'm honoured that he is. I'm a big fan of Ian Evans. I think, like we said earlier with Gary, I think he does a hell of a lot and he's trying the right things and I've got a lot of time for him. I welcome any comments, positive, any comments that disagree with something, but I will not in any way, shape or form next week have any bad derogatory stuff. I don't mind mixed opinions. I don't mind disagreeing or disagreeing with some of the things Ian may or may have not done. But on this comments feed, I'm going to be getting moderators on there next week because I think it's going to be a busy show. So I welcome all opinions and any that are family friendly, even if they don't agree with what perhaps is being said, can be read out and will be asked if there's any questions out there. I'm really looking forward to having Ian on. Dennis says it's a sport and it always has been. The trouble there, Dennis, is it's not actually classified as a sport. If we could actually get it classified and recognized as a sport, things would be very much easier. But that's the trouble. It's not. And that's what needs to happen. That's one of the things that I will be bringing up with Ian Evans next week. Andy and Bernie Butler, great show tonight. Well, thank you very much. Next week, looking forward to it. Yeah, I am too, Andy. Thank you, and Bernie. Andy and Bernie. Thank you for that. So, yeah, that's about it, guys. Few quick plugs. The new RPRI auctions RPI Auctions is launched. We've got our first new auction on the new system. It's a brand new system. It's industrial based. It does more things than you can imagine, and it's a great system. I'm going to be planning lots with it. To celebrate the launch of it, just go to RPI Auctions and go and register. And if you register, you're in with a chance of spending £50 on either the current auction we have now or any one of the next 12 months. And I'll be just picking somebody out at random using a software to do it. So it's all fair. And you'll get £50 auction credit to use in any auction over the next 12 months. And at the moment, we've got 45 excellent lots from the long distance ace of Germany, who is Rolf Schomer, and him and his father won the International Barcelona, and they've got a great family. So go and check that out. That's promo 1 done. Like I said, go and check it out. The auction started now, and it ends on Sunday the 2nd of February at 5 o'clock. Incidentally, I've seen a lot of Irish registrations come in, and I've had Maltese auctions. These pigeons do very well in Malta, and that's got to be an indication of, if they do well in Malta, why perhaps there's some Irish interest there as well, because these pigeons are hard-nosed pigeons. That is about it. Thank you very much. Jonathan Parrott says, real quick, people need to be open to change and new ideas, and sadly they're not. Jonathan, I know, but we can only keep trying. That's all we can do. Keep pushing forward, and we try. Like I said, I'm going to be fascinated to see what Ian Evans is talking about next week, and I'm really looking forward to it. Folks, thank you very much for watching. It's great to have so many of you watching. It means a lot to me. Like I said, next week, 8 o'clock, here on RPI Live TV. 8 o'clock on Monday next week with Ian Evans. Have a great rest of your night. Have a great week. Keep flying and be lucky. Catch you soon.